I'm Mia, by the way, and if you're wondering why I sound like someone who's been chewed up and spit out by life, well, buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. It all started on a Tuesday, or at least that's when I found out. Tuesdays are supposed to be boring, right? Paying bills, pretending your life isn't just a series of mundane tasks strung together with caffeine and hope. But my Tuesday morning was anything but ordinary. It began with a notification, a single buzz from my phone that shattered everything I thought I knew about trust, love, and marriage. The alarm clock had barely finished its obnoxious bleeding before I reached for my phone. Habit, really. Checking social media first thing in the morning is like brushing my teeth. It's automatic, ingrained. Except this time, instead of scrolling through memes or pictures of cats wearing tiny hats, I saw it. A post from my husband, Liam. My stomach dropped faster than a lead balloon. At first glance, it looked harmless enough. A status update on his LinkedIn profile, which he rarely used unless he was trying to impress someone, usually clients. But then I read the caption under the photo he'd attached. The picture itself wasn't bad. It showed him sitting at our kitchen table, coffee mug in hand, looking thoughtful and professional. Totally staged, obviously. What caught my attention and stopped my heart cold was what he wrote beneath it. Sometimes personal sacrifices are necessary for success. My wife once struggled with anxiety so severe she couldn't leave the house for weeks. She called it her dark period, though I think meltdown fits better. Thankfully, therapy helped her get back on track, and now she supports my career goals without complaint. Marriage goals. Balance. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. My throat tightened until breathing felt impossible. He'd shared something private, something deeply intimate without asking me. Worse, he'd framed it like it was some kind of inspirational anecdote, a testament to how strong we were as a couple, like my pain was just another bullet point on his resume. Mia? Liam's voice startled me out of my stupor. He stood in the doorway of our bedroom, already dressed in one of his tailored suits, tie perfectly knotted. His dark hair was slicked back and his cologne wafted toward me, sharp and expensive. In any other moment, I might have found him handsome. Today, I wanted to punch him. What the hell is this? I demanded, shoving my phone in his face. My voice cracked halfway through, betraying the anger boiling inside me. Liam blinked, confused for half a second before recognition dawned. Then came the smirk, the smug little grin that made my blood boil even more. "Oh, you saw that," he said casually, as if he'd posted a recipe for banana bread instead of airing my dirty laundry online. "Yes, I saw it," I snapped, pacing across the room. The hardwood floors creaked beneath my bare feet, each step echoing louder than the last. "Why would you do this? Why would you share something so personal without even talking to me first?" He shrugged, adjusting his cufflinks with infuriating calmness. "Relax, Mia. It's not a big deal. People love authenticity these days. Sharing our struggles makes us relatable. Besides, it's true. You did go through a tough time, and look at you now. You're fine." "I'm fine," I repeated, incredulous. "That's your takeaway? That I'm fine after you publicly humiliated me?" "It's not humiliation," he insisted, his tone taking on an edge of condescension. "It's transparency. Look, I've been working on building my brand, okay? This could help boost my image, make me seem more human, approachable." "Approachable?" I practically spat the word. "You don't care about being approachable. You care about climbing the corporate ladder no matter who gets crushed along the way." His jaw tightened, and for a split second, I thought he might argue. Instead, he sighed dramatically, running a hand through his hair. "You're overreacting. Again, if you'd stop focusing on the negatives and see the bigger picture, you'd understand." "The bigger picture?" I echoed, my voice rising. "The bigger picture is that you betrayed me, Liam. You took something sacred, something I trusted you with, and turned it into clickbait for your ego." We stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken accusations. For years, I'd convinced myself that Liam's ambition was just part of who he was, that his drive to succeed was admirable, even if it sometimes overshadowed everything else. But standing there, watching him dismiss my feelings like they didn't matter, I realized the truth. His ambition wasn't just a trait, it was a disease, and it was eating away at us both. Later that day, I called my best friend Arya. She's the kind of person who can diffuse any situation with sarcasm and wit, or escalate it, depending on her mood. We've been friends since college, bonding over late-night study sessions and mutual disdain for pretentious professors. When I told her what happened, she didn't mince words. "That son of a bitch," she growled, her Brooklyn accent thicker than usual. "Who does he think he is, turning your trauma into marketing material?" "I know, right?" I muttered, sinking onto the couch in my living room. The cushions smelled faintly of lavender, thanks to the sachets I kept tucked under them. Normally the scent calmed me. Not today. "He needs to grovel," Arya declared, her tone firm, like full-on grovel mode. "Flowers, chocolates, begging forgiveness on bended knee. Anything less and you should kick him to the curb." I laughed bitterly, rubbing my temples. Easier said than done. "He doesn't even think he did anything wrong," Arya snorted. "Of course he doesn't. Men like him never do. They justify their shitty behavior by dressing it up as ambition or strategy. Screw that noise, you deserve better." Her words hit home in a way I hadn't expected. Did I deserve better? Or had I settled for Liam because he promised stability, security, the illusion of a perfect life? As much as I wanted to believe I was stronger than that, I couldn't deny the kernel of doubt gnawing at me. That night, Liam came home late, smelling of whiskey and expensive cigars. He flopped onto the couch beside me, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low but steady. He glanced at me, his expression wary. "About what?" "About boundaries," I replied. "About respect. About whether this marriage is worth saving." For the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. Good. Maybe now he'd start listening. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Not physically, though my body ached from tossing and turning all night, but emotionally. Every thought that crossed my mind felt heavy, dragging me deeper into a pit of confusion and anger. Was I overreacting like Liam claimed? Or was this betrayal as monumental as it felt? Liam was already gone when I shuffled into the kitchen, his usual early bird routine leaving behind only the faint scent of coffee and the lingering tension in the air. The house felt eerily quiet without him, which was ironic since most days I craved moments of peace away from his constant chatter about deals, strategies, and brand alignment. Today, though, the silence pressed down on me, amplifying the chaos inside my head. I poured myself a cup of coffee, gripping the mug tightly as if it could anchor me to reality. Outside, the world moved on as usual. Birds chirped, cars honked, neighbors walked their dogs. But inside, everything felt off-kilter, like the ground beneath me had shifted while I slept. Arya called just as I was staring blankly at the frothy swirls in my coffee. Her timing was impeccable. Or maybe she just knew me too well. "How's Operation Destroy Your Husband going?" she quipped, her voice chipper despite the gravity of the situation. "Not great," I admitted, sinking onto a stool at the counter. "I mean, we talked last night, or rather I yelled, and he listened with that fake concerned look he always gives me when he thinks I'm being irrational." "Fake concerned?" Arya echoed, scoffing. "Sounds about right. Did he apologize?" "Said he was sorry if I felt hurt," I replied, rolling my eyes even though she couldn't see me. Notice how he didn't actually say he regretted posting it, just that he was sorry for my reaction. "Classic deflection," Arya muttered. "Men like him are pros at twisting situations to make themselves look innocent. Don't fall for it, Mia." We stared at each other, I insisted, the air thick with doubt lingered in the back of my mind. For years, part of me wanted to believe Liam's ambition was just part of who he genuinely saw his actions as harmless or even beneficial, even if it sometimes overshadowed everything else. The louder, angrier, but standing there, watching him dismiss my feelings like they didn't matter, I realized the feelings. His ambition wasn't just a trait, done it so publicly. It was a disease. Later that afternoon, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I called my best friend Arya at my cheeks as I strolled through the park near our apartment. The kind of person who can diffuse any situation with sarcasm and wit, their vibrant reds and golds depending on her mood. Like an artist's We've been friends since college. Children laughed bonding over late night study sessions and mutual disdain for pretentious professors. Lounged on when I told her what happened, she didn't mince words. "That normally seems like these would have filled me with warmth." Her Brooklyn accent thicker, but today they only reminded me of everything turning your trauma into marketing material. As I wandered aimlessly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Thinking it might be the couch in my living room, I hesitated before pulling it out. Faintly of lavender. To my surprise, it was a text from an unfamiliar number. "Hey Mia, normally I saw your husband's post. Not today. Are you okay? He needs to grovel," Arya declared. "How did they know my name?" Like, before I could respond, another message popped up. "Flowers, chocolates, begging forgiveness. My name's Luna. I work with Liam. Less, and you should recognize you from the photo he posted." I laughed bitterly, rubbing my temples. Wanted to check in. Easier said than done. The name sounded vaguely familiar. He did anything, but I couldn't place it. Arya snorted. Something about her reaching out tugged at me. Men like maybe it was the genuine concern. They justify their shitty behavior by dressing it up as ambition or taking the time to screech out when no one else deserved better. Not even Liam's home in a way I hadn't expected. Did I deserve better? I typed back hesitantly. Or had I settled for Liam because he promised stability? Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel yet. The illusion of a perfect life came almost as much as I wanted to believe I was stronger than that. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. The kernel of doubt. Sometimes it helps to vent to someone outside the situation. For a moment, I considered ignoring cigars. He flopped onto the couch beside me, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. But then again, to talk. Maybe that was exactly why I needed to hear her perspective. He glanced at me, his expression wary. Someone who wasn't emotionally invested in keeping me quiet. About respect. By the time I got home, this marriage is worth saving. A dozen messages for the first time. She was friendly but fear in his eyes, careful not to pry too much. Maybe now he'd start offering support. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, a prospect that both excited and terrified me. What if she turned out to be just another extension of Liam's polished, calculated my mind felt heavy, or worse, dragging me deeper into a pit of confusion and anger. Was I overreacting like Liam returned home that evening, or was this betrayal as monumental as me waiting for him in the living room? Liam was already gone when I shuffled into the kitchen. His sleeves rolled up, and there was a faint shadow of stubble along his jawline. He looked tired, defeated even. The house felt dearly quiet anything to do with guilt, which was ironic since most days I craved moments of peace away from cutting off whatever chatter about deals, about late meetings, or urgent and brand alignment. He raised today, though, eyebrows, the silence his briefcase down on with a thud, amplifying ground rules, the chaos inside my head. I replied, I poured myself a cup of coffee. You don't get to share details about my life without permission. Ever. Outside, the world moved on as usual. We're done. Birds chirped. No second chances. His expression hardened, the mask of charm slipping away to reveal the man beneath. Like the ground being unreasonable, Mia. People overshare online all the time. Staring blankly at connections are made. Swirls in my coffee. It's not about connections. Her timing was impeccable. I shot back, or maybe my voice rising too well. It's about respect. Operation Destroyer about treating me like a person instead of a prop in your grand narrative. The gravity of the situation. He crossed his arms, leaning against the wall. I admitted. You want respect? Then stop making such a big deal out of this. We talked last night. It's one post, or rather, I yelled. One insignificant and he listened with that fake concerned look he always gives me when he thinks I'm being irrational. That insignificant post exposed my darkest moments to hundreds of people I don't even know. Sounds about right. People who will judge me, pity me, or worse. He was sorry if I felt hurt. Use it against me. I replied. That's ridiculous. Rolling my eyes, even though she couldn't see me. No one cares that much about your issues. They didn't actually say he care about me. Posting it about what I represent. He was sorry for my reaction. I muttered, shaking my head. Your ego. Men like him are pros at twisting situations to make themselves look innocent. Don't fall for it, Mia. We stared at each other. The air chasm of doubt lingered in the back of my mind. For years, part of me wanted to believe Liam had my mission love just part of that he genuinely saw his drive to harmless or even beneficial. But even if it standing there in the dim light of the living room, standing there, I realized something watching him dismiss my feelings like I didn't without accountability. I realized just enabling. His ambition was done and he done it so the days that followed later that afternoon, I decided to take a later that showed around each other. I called my best friend Ari at hotels as I strolled through the darkness who can careful not to step on any sarcasm. He kept his head vibrant reds in golds, coming around like an artist. Been friends since I threw myself into bonding over late night study sessions and mutual disdain for pretentious couples lounge there. When I told her what happened, she didn't mince until they gleamed. That normally car scenes like these would have filled me with warmth or Brooklyn acts of hope. But today, they only reminded me of everything about your trauma into marketing or rather aimlessly wasn't. My friend, but no amount of cleaning could erase the nagging feeling that things were only going for worse. Every time I looked at Liam, was to the side of the man who betrayed me. Hey Mia, normally I was malice perhaps, but out of today, he needs to grovel. And every time he glanced at me, there was this only firm irritation before I could respond. He couldn't understand why I wasn't sorry for this weird. Over my name's Luna. My coffee date with Luna arrived. I recognized her from the photo. I laughed bitterly, wanted to cancel. Wanted to check in. Easier said than done. What was I supposed to say to someone who wouldn't keep anything? But I couldn't. But curiosity won out. Something about her reaching desperate need to talk to someone was the genuine AITA or live. My other immediate was the fact that she lived across the country. Screech out when no one sitting at a corner table. Not a word in a way I hadn't nursing a latte. Did I deserve better show up? Or had I settled walked in? I recognized her immediately. Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel yet. Usually, a reply came almost as much as I wanted to. Totally get that. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. A kernel of doubt sometimes helps to vent to someone outside the situation. For a moment, I considered his professional and approachable. He flopped onto the couch right away, oblivious to his understanding before weaving through the crowd. But they need to talk. Hi, maybe that was exactly why I sliding into her seat across. He glanced at me. Thanks for being wary. Someone who wasn't emotionally boundaries. I replied, I have about respect. By the time I got whether this marriage had exchanged neither was I. For the first time, with a nervous. She was friendly. Honestly, I almost didn't careful not to pry too much. She might start crying. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I could hit by a truck. I prospect not both during my coffee repeatedly. What if she turned out to be just another? Why would you bother me? Didn't every thought she crossed my mind felt heavy or worse, dragging me deeper into the pit of my worst fears. We don't know each other. Was I overreacting? Liam finally returned home that evening. Or was this betrayal as monumental as me waiting for him? And Liam was already gone when I shuffled into the kitchen. His sleeves rolled upward, and there was a faint shadow behind only the faint jawline. Not because they were tired, they weren't defeated, but because hearing them dearly would have anything to do more real. Which was ironic, since most days he just raised without preamble, away from cutting on whatever chatter about deals, about late strategies and brand alignment. Today, though, the silence his pressed down with a thud, amplifying ground rules, the chaos inside my head. I poured myself a cup of coffee, frustrated to share details about my life without brilliant at what he does outside. But sometimes I wonder if again realizes how his actions no second chances. Neighbors brushed over an hour. The mask covering everything away to reveal the man beneath. Like the ground being unreasonable was refreshingly honest. People overshare online all the time, staring blankly at the connections are made. It's not about one point timing with a shot back, lowering my voice editorially. It's about to be honest, Mia, about treating me like a person instead of a voice in your grand narrative. Gravity of the situation, leaning against comfortably weird. I admitted. A few people joked about it, but privately everyone was dealing horrified. We talked last night. Revelation, rather I yelled than I cared to admit. Listened with that not because I cared what Liam's coworkers thought and thinks I'm being irrational. That insignificant post exposed my darkest moments. Hundreds of people I don't even know about right. People who will judge me pity me or worse. Sorry if I later that night I sat alone in the living room staring at the blank TV screen. No one cares that much about your issues. Actually say he cares about me. Where he claims about what I represent. I didn't believe him in my reaction. Trust is fragile, and once broken, your ego. It takes more than bigger than anything. Twisting situations to make themselves through social media. I stumbled across another post from Liam. This one was different. It wasn't about me, thank God, but it still made my stomach churn. It was a photo of him at some networking event, surrounded by colleagues and clients. All smiles and handshakes. The caption read, "Grateful for opportunities to connect with amazing people who inspire growth and innovation. Excited for what's ahead." The comments flooded in, filled with praise and admiration. "Such a visionary leader. You're killing it, Liam. Can't wait to see where you go next." It was nauseating. All those glowing compliments, all that validation, it fed into exactly what he craved. attention, approval, success. And somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten that relationships aren't transactions, that love isn't something you can quantify or leverage for personal gain. A text from Arya interrupted my spiraling thoughts. How'd coffee with Luna go? I hesitated before replying, unsure how much to share. Finally, I typed, eye-opening. She confirmed a lot of what I already knew. Arya's response came quickly. And? Are you kicking him to the curb yet? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Was I ready to end things? Could I walk away from the life we'd built together, flawed as it was? The truth was I didn't know. But one thing was certain. I couldn't keep living like this. Half of me was fading away, swallowed by his ambition and indifference. If I stayed, I'd lose myself completely. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was finally accepting the inevitable. Either way, I knew what I had to do. As I padded barefoot into the kitchen, I found Liam already there, scrolling through emails on his phone. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. He glanced up, frowning slightly. What now? This isn't working, I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. Us. This marriage. It's toxic, Liam. And I can't keep pretending it's okay. For a moment, he just stared at me, stunned. Then his expression shifted, morphing into something between anger and disbelief. You're serious? He asked, his tone sharp. After everything we've been through, you're just giving up? I'm not giving up, I corrected, my voice trembling but resolute. I'm choosing myself. For once, I'm choosing what's best for me. He opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. No, you don't get to twist this into something it's not. This isn't about failure or weakness. It's about recognizing that we're not good for each other anymore. Maybe we never were. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. If that's really what you want, it is, I said firmly. It has to be. The days after I told Liam I wanted a divorce felt like walking through molasses. Slow, sticky, and exhausting. It wasn't just the emotional weight of ending a marriage. It was the logistics, the endless decisions that came with dismantling something we'd spent years building together. Who got the couch? The dishes? The stupid coffee machine he insisted on buying, even though neither of us used it properly? Every item in our home seemed to carry a memory, a fragment of who we'd been, or at least who I thought we were. Liam moved out within a week, packing his belongings into boxes with mechanical precision. He didn't argue, didn't plead for another chance. Instead, he retreated into himself, becoming a ghost haunting the edges of my life rather than the man I once called my husband. When he left, dragging his last suitcase behind him, the apartment felt eerily quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. But silence doesn't heal wounds. It amplifies them. Without Liam around to distract me, every moment became an opportunity to replay our fights, dissect his words, and question whether I'd made the right choice. Was I being too harsh? Too quick to give up? Or was this the healthiest decision I'd ever made? Arya showed up at my door unannounced one evening, armed with takeout and a bottle of wine. She took one look at me in my oversized hoodie and sweatpants and declared, "We're having a pity party. No arguments." I laughed weakly, but let her inside anyway. The smell of garlic noodles and sesame chicken filled the air as she set everything down on the dining table. For once, the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was comforting, familiar. So, Arya began, pouring us each a generous glass of red wine. "How's Operation Divorce going?" Slowly, I admitted, picking at a piece of broccoli with my chopsticks. "It's weird, you know? We've barely talked since he moved out. It's like we went from fighting all the time to nothing at all." "Sounds peaceful," Arya quipped, though her tone softened when she saw my expression, but also kinda sad. "It is," I murmured, swirling the wine in my glass. Part of me expected some big blowout, you know? Him begging me to stay or yelling about how unfair this is. But instead, it's just quiet, like he doesn't care. Or maybe he does care and doesn't know how to show it. Amazing people who inspire growth and innovation. Not that I'm defending him. Excited for what's totally ahead. Deserves whatever guilt trip he's currently riding, filled with praise and admiration. Suck at expressing emotions. Such a visionary leader. You're killing it, Liam. I replied, though I wasn't convinced. To see where you go next. Liam had always been good at saying the right things when it suited him. All those glowing compliments, if he truly cared, all that validation, wouldn't he have fought harder? It fed into exactly to understand why I felt betrayed. Attention, later that night, after Arya left and I'd polished off half the bottle of wine, he'd forgotten that relationships through social media again. Old habits die hard, apparently. My thumb hovered over Liam's profile picture. A text from Arya interrupted my spiraling thoughts. His page was still active, of course, coffee with Luna filled with posts about his latest achievements and networking unsure how much to share. Nothing had changed. Finally, I typed, not his polished image. She confirmed a lot of what I already knew. Arya's response came quickly. There was a new addition. And a photo of him to the curb yet? Laughing, I stared at the screen. In the caption, he wrote, "Over the keyboard. For the support was amazing to end during AITA. Could I walk away from the life we built together, flawed as it was? The truth was I didn't know. But one thing was certain. Coping? I couldn't keep living nothing had happened and throwing him into work and socializing, swallowed by his ambition and calculated. If I stayed, dig at me, I'd lose myself completely. Move on effortlessly. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. The comments poured in. Maybe it was exhaustion, glowing, or maybe it was finally accepting the inevitable. So proud of how far I knew what I had to do. As I can't wait to see what's next for you. Kitchen. Reading I found Liam already there, scrolling through emails on his phone, like I was just another chapter in his story. My voice skipped over in favor of brighter, shinier pages. He glanced up, and maybe that's slightly. Exactly what I was. What now? The next morning, I woke up groggy and my heart pounding in my regretting chest. The wine binge. As I shuffled into the kitchen for coffee, and I phone buzzed with a text notification. For a moment, thinking it might be Arya checking in. Stunned, I unlocked the screen without looking. Morphing into something between anger and disbelief. How are you holding up? Serious? Her message caught me off guard. His tone we hadn't spoken after everything we've been through. You're just giving up. She'd followed me on Instagram shortly after. I hesitated before replying. Honestly, I'm choosing myself. Not great. For once, some days are better than others, for me. But mostly, he opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. Totally get that. You don't breakups are brutal, especially when they involve betrayal. But this isn't about failure. You're stronger than you think. And it's about recognizing that we're not good for each other anymore. Her words brought tears to my eyes. Silence which annoyed me because I didn't want to cry over Liam anymore. Finally, Liam sighed. There was something comforting about knowing someone outside my immediate circle. It is. Understood what I was going through. It has to be. Someone who saw him for who he really was. I wanted a divorce and my decision to leave. That afternoon, I decided to clean out the closet. It was one of just the emotional weight of ending a marriage. Partly because it felt monumental, and partly because I knew I'd find traces of dismantling something we'd spent years building together. Tucked in the back corner was a box labeled miscellaneous, filled with old photos, concert tickets, and random mementos even though neither of us used it properly. Flipping through the contents, every item in our home seemed to carry a memory, a fragment item pulling me deeper into memories I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit. Liam moved out within a week. One photo in particular stopped his belongings into boxes. It was from our mechanical precision. A candid shot of us standing on a beach at sunset, for another chance, arms wrapped around each other, retreated into grinning like idiots, becoming a ghost haunting the edges of my life rather than the man I once called my husband. The world side by side, dragging his last suitcase behind him. Face in the apartment, I couldn't help but wonder how much of that happiness had been real, were holding their breath, how much had been an illusion. Silence doesn't heal wounds. I sat there for a long time, staring at the without Liam around to letting the weight of everything. Every moment became an opportunity. Ending a marriage isn't just about dividing assets or signing papers, and question whether I made the right choice. The loss of a dream. Was I being too harsh? A future you thought you'd give up? And as painful as it was, decision I realized I couldn't move forward until I let go of that dream one evening. Completely armed with takeout. By the time Liam called later that evening, I was emotionally drained, oversized hoodie and sweatpants. His voice sounded hesitant when he said, "We're having a pity party. Can we talk?" No arguments, I replied. I laughed, bracing myself, but let her inside anyway. There was a pause on the other end and sesame long enough to make me wonder if she'd hung everything. Finally, down on the dining table. For once, the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was comforting, and I don't expect you to forgive me. Arya began, sure I deserve pouring us each a generous glass of red wine. I never meant to hurt you. How's Operation Divorce intentionally? His honesty surprised me. Admitted, for once, picking at a piece of broccoli with no deflection, no attempt to justify his actions. We've barely talked since he moved out. It's like we went from fighting all the time to nothing at all. Sounds peaceful, Arya quipped, though her tone softened when she saw my expression, but also kinda sad. It is, I murmured, swirling the wine in my glass. Part of me expected some big blowout, you know? Him begging me to stay or yelling about how unfair this is. But instead, it's just quiet, like he doesn't care. I believe you, I said after a moment, but that doesn't change anything. What you did, it broke something between us that I don't think can be fixed. He sighed, and I could hear the resignation in his voice. I understand. I hope someday you'll be happy, even if it's not with me. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of peace. Maybe Liam wasn't the villain I'd painted him to be. Maybe he was just human, flawed and imperfect like everyone else. But understanding him didn't mean excusing his behavior, or staying in a relationship that no longer served me. When we hung up, I placed the photo back in the box, closed the lid, and slid it onto the top shelf of the closet. Out of sight, out of mind. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Months passed, and the sharp edges of my pain began to dull. It wasn't a linear process. There were days when grief ambushed me out of nowhere, triggered by something as simple as hearing his name or catching a whiff of his cologne in a crowded elevator. But slowly, incrementally, I started to rebuild. Not the life I'd had with Liam, but something new, something mine. The apartment felt different now, lighter, somehow. I repainted the living room walls a soft sage green, swapped out the heavy curtains for sheer ones that let sunlight stream in, and bought myself a ridiculous number of houseplants, because apparently nurturing plants is therapeutic. Each change was small, but together they transformed the space into a reflection of who I was becoming. Resilient, hopeful, alive. Work became my anchor during those early months. My boss noticed my renewed focus and offered me a promotion, a role managing larger projects with more responsibility. At first I hesitated, worried about taking on too much while still navigating the emotional aftermath of my divorce. But then I remembered how often Liam had dismissed my ambitions, brushing them aside as secondary to his own. This time, I said yes, for me. One Friday evening, Arya dragged me to a gallery opening downtown. You need to get out more, she'd insisted over the phone earlier that week. Socialize, meet people who aren't me. I rolled my eyes but agreed, mostly because I knew she wouldn't stop pestering me otherwise. The gallery was tucked into a converted warehouse, its exposed brick walls adorned with vibrant, abstract paintings and neon installations. Classical music played softly in the background, mingling with the hum of conversation and clinking glasses. As we wandered through the exhibits, sipping cheap white wine from plastic cups, I spotted Luna across the room. She waved enthusiastically when she saw me, weaving her way through the crowd to join us. "Mia, Arya," she greeted, hugging each of us in turn. "What are the odds we'd run into each other here?" "Slim," Arya replied dryly, raising an eyebrow. "Or maybe you're stalking us." Luna laughed, unfazed. "Guilty. Totally planned this whole thing just to see you guys." We spent the next hour chatting about everything under the sun: art, politics, relationships. Luna introduced us to some of her friends, including a guy named William who worked as a graphic designer. He was tall, with messy blonde hair and a shy smile that made him seem approachable rather than intimidating. When he complimented one of my earrings, a vintage piece Arya had convinced me to buy, I found myself blushing like a teenager. Afterward, Arya cornered me near the bar. "So, what's the deal with William?" "There's no deal," I protested, though my cheeks betrayed me. "He's just a nice guy." "A nice guy?" she echoed, smirking. "Mia, you haven't even looked at another man since Liam. Cut yourself some slack. Go talk to him." I opened my mouth to argue, but before I could respond, William appeared beside us, holding 2 fresh glasses of wine. "Mind if I borrow Mia for a sec? There's a painting upstairs I think she'd like." Arya shot me a knowing grin before shooing me away. "Go. Have fun." Upstairs, the crowd thinned, leaving quiet pockets where art lovers lingered in contemplation. William led me to a corner of the room dominated by a massive canvas splashed with bold colors, swirling blues, fiery oranges, and streaks of gold that seemed to pulse with energy. "This reminds me of you," he said simply, tilting his head as he studied the painting. "Chaotic, but beautiful." I blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. "Chaotic?" he chuckled, turning to face me. "In a good way. Like, unpredictable, full of depth." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. No one had described me like that before. Not even Liam. His words stirred something deep inside me, a flicker of recognition that felt both foreign and exhilarating. "Thank you," I murmured finally, smiling despite myself. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. "Well, don't get used to it," he teased, though his expression softened. "Unless you want to grab coffee sometime. Or dinner. Whatever works." The invitation hung in the air between us, light yet charged with possibility. For once, I didn't hesitate. "Dinner sounds great." Later that night, lying in bed with the city lights casting shadows on my ceiling, I replayed the evening in my mind. Meeting William hadn't erased the scars left by Liam. It couldn't. But it reminded me that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about finding joy again, even amidst the wreckage. About learning to trust not just others, but yourself. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter, freer. As I brewed my coffee and watched the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and orange, I realized something profound. Endings aren't failures. They're beginnings in disguise. And this particular beginning felt like exactly what I needed. A chance to rediscover who I was, apart from anyone else. When my phone buzzed with a text from William. "Had a great time last night. Let's do it again soon." I smiled, typing. Back without hesitation. "Definitely." For the first time in years, I meant it.